So it's now time for our first inspirational talk, and I'm delighted to introduce Dre Baldwin, who created Work on Your Game, which is a philosophy imparting mental toughness, confidence, and self-discipline to athletes, entrepreneurs, and business professionals. Dre has worked with brands including Nike, Finish Line, Wendy's, Gatorade, Buick, Wilson Sports, and Dime magazine, as well as being a 3 times TED Talk speaker. Dre is a Penn State alum who has played professional basketball. He played professional basketball for 9 years in 8 different countries, and I think that alone deserves a round of applause. Come on up, Dre.
Microphone on. We good now? Okay, I gotta get better at timing my intros, but thank you for that introduction, Linus. There was a guy who owned a really successful digital marketing agency. He was sitting down with his brand new son-in-law, and he said, "Son, just to show you how dedicated I am to having you as part of my family, I'm gonna make you a 50-50 partner in my really successful agency. All I need you to do is show up to our creators meeting tomorrow and offer some ideas." Son-in-law said, no. There's no way that's gonna work out. I don't have a creative bone in my body. The business owner said, very well then, we need some help in the finance department. Show up there later this week and you can learn how we run the operations there. Son-in-law said, man, there is no way I can work in the finance department. I hate numbers, I hate looking at computers all day, and I can't stand sitting behind a desk. Business owner said, so let me get this straight. You just married my daughter. I just made you a 50-50 partner in my very profitable business, yet you don't have any creative skills and you don't want to do any other operations work. What am I supposed to do with you? Son-in-law said, easy, just buy me out. Now, thankfully, Linus let me know earlier this morning that we may have some time for a Q&A at the end of this, so I definitely would like all of you to, if you have any questions, submit them through the app. That's how we're doing it, through the app, so I can take your questions. Just in case, just so you know, what exactly do I do? It's kind of hard to explain, but I will tell you that any client that I have, anyone who hires me as a coach, consultant to speak, reads any of my books, follows me online, they're looking for one of 2 things. One of them being mental toughness, perseverance, confidence, discipline, and the other is getting themselves seen, heard, and known, getting the exposure that they need for themselves, their brand, their business. Now, this talk today is about proving yourself, or not needing to prove yourself. I remember the first time in life I ever thought that I needed to prove myself, and I was really going to make it happen. I was playing sports, but not basketball. My first sport was actually football. I went out for the local football team practices. We practiced for about 2 weeks, and all we did was work on fundamentals. The coach didn't even bring the footballs out. All we did was work on conditioning, proper way to tackle, getting into a 3-point stance like the offensive lineman and defensive lineman, and I learned how to go to the wall. Now, I didn't know what go to the wall meant, but one day in practice, one of the coaches blows his whistle and he just yells out really loud, to the wall, everybody go to the wall. I had no idea what this meant, but I just looked around at the 50 other boys, mind you, we're all 8, 9, 10 years old, and everyone started running to the fence on the edge of the playground because we're at a football field. So we all get over to the edge of the fence. I'm running with everybody else. The boys get over to the fence, and they start pulling their pants down and urinating on the fence. So that's what go to the wall meant. That was a new skill that I picked up playing football. After 2 weeks of practicing, the coach says, we need all of you to start showing up in your full equipment next week so we can start playing football, tackling, blocking, hitting, things like that. I told my parents about it. They said, listen, we can't afford football equipment for you. So that was pretty much the end of my football career, but there was a bright lining to that cloud was that I could go play a different sport, baseball. And the reason why this was great is because my favorite athlete growing up, still my favorite athlete of all time to this day, is a guy who's known in the Bay Area, helped bring a championship here. His name was Deion Sanders, prime time. Deion was one of the few people who played in the NFL and Major League Baseball at the same time in his career. So I figured if I can't prove myself as Deion on the football field, I'll do it on the baseball field. One challenge with baseball was that I was a complete bum at baseball. Thing is, it took me 5 years to figure it out. When I first started playing baseball at age 9, we used to use this thing called a pitching machine. I don't know if any of you know what that is, but it's when the official or umpire stands on the pitcher's mound instead of an actual pitcher, and he drops the baseball into this machine, and the machine pitches the ball right down the middle every single time in the same spot. So I started playing baseball at age 9. By age 12, I got pretty good at hitting that baseball that was coming to the same spot every single time. By the time I got to age 13 and 14, we started playing fast pitch baseball. My very first game, I realized my baseball career was over because I was deathly afraid of that live pitcher throwing that ball because you have no idea where the ball is going to come. I didn't want to get hit with it. I never swung the bat once. So every time I played baseball, those last 2 years, I would either get a walk, meaning the pitcher threw 4 balls that were not strikes, or I would strike out looking. So one day, age 14, after striking out looking 3 more times in the game, I took a 50-foot walk over to the basketball court in my neighborhood playground. I figured playing basketball, I may have some natural attributes that can help me be successful. I mean, I'm taller than most of the kids my age. I'm athletic. I can run fast. I can jump high. I have pretty long arms. I'm black. So I figured this might work. I might be able to make it work as a basketball player. So the first question I want to give you, rhetorical question that you can take from that part of my life trying to prove something, is what have you put a whole lot of time and energy into that you had no natural ability for and you didn't even really like that much? Moving on to basketball, I'm age 14, 8th grade. Every day at lunch we would play pickup basketball at recess. For those who don't know what pickup basketball means, it's not the basketball you watch on TV, but it's what you see at the local park or the local gym, where people just show up to the gym and literally pick up teams of 5 and they play against each other. Now, the game doesn't go to a certain time, but it goes by score. So we'll play until someone gets 10 points or 15 points. The game ends. The winning team stays on the court. The losing team gets off the court. And you just keep picking up players, and you keep going until everyone goes home. Now, in pickup, there's no time clock. There are no coaches. There are no referees, and there's no substitutions. So save for someone getting injured, since the games are so short, people don't get tired too quickly. There's no substituting in a pickup basketball game, right? Well, that's because you never saw me playing pickup basketball in 8th grade. I was so bad, there were games when the team would literally stop the game and substitute me out of the game for somebody else because I kept making so many mistakes. At the end of 8th grade, I was talking to my friend Brandon. Brandon happened to be the best player in our entire middle school. I knew he was going on to start in varsity in high school. I was going to a different high school, and I figured I'd ask him for some advice. Brandon, I want to play basketball. I just want to be a respectable basketball player, let alone be as good as you. I just want to be respectable. What can I do? Give me some advice. Brandon gave me 2 tips that day. Number 1, Dre, you have to stop playing scared. You can't play basketball when you're afraid. Even if you had all the game, if you're afraid every time you step out there to perform, you won't be able to show your skills. Second tip he gave me was, Dre, you just need to go buy yourself a game. And he said this in the nicest way possible. He basically told me I was a bum, told me I was garbage. He said, Dre, you can't shoot the ball. You don't grab any rebounds. You don't know how to play defense. You don't know how to pass. Whenever you're on the court, you're just out there taking up space. You got to get yourself some game. And when I wrote my first book in 2012, I named it Buy a Game after what Brandon told me. So the question I want to tell you from that, actually, first let me give you a piece of advice from that. When you write your first book, name it after someone who gave you some advice so you know you get at least 1 sale. But other than that, the question that I got was, when did you show up to something just because you felt like you had some natural skill, thinking you would be successful even though you had no practice abilities, no game? And secondly, when did you learn to not be confident? Because as human beings, our natural state is to be confident. If any of you have raised a child or been around a young baby who can't yet understand language, you can see this. When a baby decides it wants something, it immediately goes after it. No second guessing, no asking for advice, doesn't sign up for an online course, doesn't think what other people are going to think about it. It immediately takes action to the best of its abilities using the resources available to it. We learn to second guess ourselves. We learn to not believe in our own abilities. We learn to self-deprecate, and we learn to not shine as bright as we can for fear of outshining our friends. So when did you learn to start doing that? Moving on to high school, I finally did take Brandon's advice. I started to develop some game. But in varsity tryouts in high school, I got cut as a 9th grader and I got cut in 10th grade. But I had an ace in my pocket. My second favorite athlete of all time, not counting myself, was Michael Jordan. Now, if you know Michael Jordan's story, you know Michael Jordan got cut from the basketball team in 9th grade and in 10th grade. And he's gone down as the greatest basketball player of all time. So I figured, okay, I'm still on the track to be Michael Jordan. All I have to do is make the team as a junior. I'll be pretty good. I'll be a superstar as a senior. And before you know it, I'm giving my Hall of Fame induction speech. So you want to know what happened when I tried out for the basketball team my junior year? Want to know what happened? All right, so we're in the Bay Area. You all know Steph Curry, right? Stephen Curry, Golden State Warriors. You know when one of those games where he just gets on fire and he makes like 6, 7, 8 shots in a row and the whole crowd is just going wild? Even the road fans are going wild. Even people who don't even know basketball are like, yeah, Steph Curry. Well, that's exactly what happened the junior year basketball tryouts for me. Oh, the thing is, it wasn't me who did it. It was the guy I was playing defense against. He did it to me. I got completely embarrassed on the court that day in basketball. Even there were some girls who were watching tryouts from the sideline. After about the 3rd or 4th basket in a row, I heard one of the girls mumble, he needs to just go home. So after my junior year tryouts, I wasn't sure I was even going to play basketball anymore. But as I continued to try to recreate in my mind what I was going to do, because I'd always been using this skill of what I couldn't label back then, but what we know now is visualization. What am I going to do with my life? I thought maybe I could be a rapper. So I got me a pen and notepad and tried for a day or two. I knew that wasn't going to work out. Then I thought maybe I could be an academic. Maybe I could try really hard at school, get really good grades, and maybe do something kind of like my sister did. She was really good at school. Tried that for a semester. That didn't work out. Every vision kept coming back to basketball. So I finally made the team as a senior in high school. And through 25 games, I scored about 10 to 15 points. Pretty respectable, right? Oh, but that wasn't 10 to 15 points per game. That was 10 to 15 points all season. So coming out of high school, no one could look at me and say, this kid is going to make it as a basketball player. This kid is going to be successful. The question I'll give you, coming out of those 4 years of high school for me, is I knew that I had friends who had way more talent than me in basketball, faced setbacks just like I did, but they quit. Do you know anyone like that? Last thing I'll give you. When I was in college, after my freshman year, I walked on at a small school. I actually made the team, played okay. I didn't set the world on fire, but I made the team. That summer, I was going to a commuter campus, meaning there's no housing on the campus. I would drive 20 minutes every single day to campus to work on my game, practice my basketball skills in the gym. I was the only one in there. None of the coaches mandated that we do this. None of my teammates ever showed up to the gym. I would just come in there, work out, and leave every day. Nobody, if I wasn't telling you right now, nobody would ever know that I was in there. One particular day, I hadn't eaten breakfast before I worked out. So I walked over to the campus cafeteria to get something to eat. As I'm walking in, there are a bunch of people sitting in the lobby, kind of like this room right here. And I knew I didn't know them. I knew they weren't from our campus. I thought maybe it's a faculty meeting or something. This is in the summertime. So I walked through, go get some food. I'm walking out. A guy steps in front of me, and he says, hey, man, what position do you play? And I'm looking at this guy like, I know I don't know this guy. Mind you, we're in the cafeteria. We're not even in the gym, so he doesn't even know I play a sport. And on top of that, he's about my height, black guy too. And this is a really small campus I went to, so I knew all the black people. So when I see this guy, I'm like, who is this dude? I don't know him. He asked me what position do I play. So I answer the question. I tell him I play guard, and we have a short conversation. Come to find out, he's the coach at a different college campus, the basketball coach. I found out 10 years later when I was talking to him that he did not even know who I was. But he said, you know what? I know a basketball player when I see one, and you looked like the type of player that I needed for my team. He recruited me right there on the spot, and I transferred to another school just because I had been showing up every single day doing the work. So my question to you there is, when you can't even see your success, when you've had so many setbacks, as the success is so far away that you can't even envision it anymore, do you keep showing up? Are you disciplined enough to keep showing up and doing the work even when the success is not guaranteed and no one who could objectively look at your situation can see success happening? In conclusion, sometimes in life we face setbacks that go so deep, the average person will look at it and say, that right there would be my breaking point. Sometimes we are so far away from our goal that we logically know is not making any sense for us to keep going. But there's something inside of each one of us when we find the right vocation, the right activity, that we're going to keep going no matter what. Even completely unreasonably keep going. Question is, have you found yours? And the last thing is this. There will be a time for every single one of us, maybe multiple times, but they will be few and very far between, when someone's going to reach out to you and say, I need you for this opportunity. There's a big project we need you to take care of. Can you handle it? I need you to get in the game, Dre, this big championship game, and make a big play. And the only way you are going to be ready to take advantage of that opportunity is if you've been doing two things. Developing your skills for your job so that you can actually deliver on your chance, and making sure you've been staying mentally sharp enough, focused, disciplined enough on your job so that when the opportunity arises, you actually notice it. Have you been working on your game? Thank you.
Fantastic, thanks Dre, and I'm sure there's going to be questions coming through on the app. Please do add one if anything springs to mind. Guys, can we show if there's any questions coming through?
Man, my information was that good? No questions?
Okay, I'm sure they'll start loading up soon. I've got a question, Dre.
Sure.
Can you tell us, you've worked with some great brands there on the list. Can you tell us a bit how you've applied some of this positive thinking to work with some of those brands to make them improve their performance? Absolutely.
Number one thing that's happening these days, especially with social media, is that companies are looking for what we call influencers. People who have big followings on social media, and through those people, they reach their fans who they have a much deeper connection with, and thus get more attention to the brand, more attention to their products, things like that. So the reason that I work with a lot of these companies is because they see me as an influencer, and it's not just because I have a certain number of followers. It's not just the follower numbers that people are coming to me for. They come to you for what we call the connection. The connection that you have with your audience, the respect your audience has for you, the trust that your audience has in you, that when you bring them something and say, hey, take a look at these sneakers by Nike, or take a look at this video project by Wendy's, or this new program that Gatorade is doing, my fans will look at it not because it's another product in their face, not because of the price, but because they know that I'm not going to give them anything that's going to hurt them. They know I'm going to bring them something that I vetted and something that I use myself. So it's not necessarily about the numbers, it's about the real engagement that I have with those people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, fantastic. And something we were discussing earlier was a lot of brands we mentioned you work with, they're quite sort of glamorous, they've got a really exciting consumer products, and a lot of us work for organisations who it's certainly exciting to the right people, but may not have that sort of glamour and reach that's obvious. So it's how can a lot of companies really kind of tap into something to really engage with an audience?
I think the number one thing is you have to speak in your own voice. I remember when I was ending my basketball career, I wanted to expand my reach outside of basketball audiences, so I thought I needed to be more quote-unquote professional. So I started another website outside of the one that I had, and it was all business stuff. I had all my pictures. I had a suit on, no hats, no T-shirts, no YouTube videos, and I got 0 engagement on that site. No one booked me to speak. No one wanted me to be their coach or consultant, and it's not because I didn't have the information, not because I didn't have the credibility, but because I wasn't speaking in my own voice. And I think the number one thing for any company, if you want people to buy into what you're doing, you have to be who you are. Now, if you're an individual, that's pretty simple to figure out, maybe. And if you're a company and there's multiple people, you have to figure out what's the voice of your company. One account I follow online is really funny is the TSA. I don't know if any of you follow the TSA on Twitter. When someone asks them a question, like, hey, I have a gold grill. Can I get this through security? Or they show all the items that they confiscate from people every week on the planes. And they're speaking their language. It gets people interested. Even if you don't fly a lot, you might follow them just to see what they're going to say. But then when it's time to fly, you're thinking, oh yeah, the TSA, even though you can't buy anything from the TSA. Any company could do the exact same thing.
Great, so we've had some questions come through now.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you can see there for
Do I pick one?
yourself. Yeah, I'll work through. I think we've got time for 2 or 3.
Okay. Let's see, what do you think is the best one? The hardest part of building and maintaining your brand. Well, here's the thing about a brand. People come to me often and they say, Dre, I want to build a brand. What do I need to do? And it's really is not the way that it works. I try to explain to people that you can't just say, I'm going to build a brand and do it. Your brand is what people think about you. Your brand is what people say when you're not around. Your brand is how people identify you. So when people see me at Dave & Buster's and I'm playing the basketball game and I miss a shot, somebody says, Dre, you need to work on your game. That's my brand. People know me for that. What people know you for is your brand. So you can't just go out and say, I'm going to build a brand. You start doing the thing that you do, and when people start to know you for it, you have a brand. If people don't know you for any particular thing, or they can't identify, okay, when this comes up, we know what we're talking about here. If someone says, just do it, we're talking Nike. If we say, what's another one? I don't know. Fly to friendly skies. Who's that? Delta? American Airlines, one of those? You know what I mean. People start to know you for the thing that you do or know the thing that you do, and they have to mention your name. So when someone talked putting a whole bunch of basketball videos on YouTube, for a long time, I was the only name you had to come up with. So, oh yeah, that guy Dre Baldwin. I meet people still to this day. They say, hey, aren't you the guy that puts all those videos on YouTube? They know you for doing that thing. So that's really how you build your brand. So to answer the question, what's the hardest part of it? There is no hard part. You do what you do. Speak from your true voice. Do what speaks to you, and people will identify with it. Because even if you're great at something that doesn't speak through your true voice, no one will identify with it. Your energy will be weak, and you have no brand.
Okay, fantastic.
Oh, we got a couple more. We got time?
Yeah.
Okay. How did I go from playing basketball to where I am today? Well, it's really simple. When I decided that I wanted to get into the professional or platform business, I guess that we call this, I just started doing it. I said, hey, I want to speak. I reached out to people who had events. I said, hey, I want to speak there. Do I need to fill out a form? Do you need to see some videos of me? And I just started doing it. I remember I spoke to a woman 2 years ago, and I said I wanted to speak at her conference. We were on the phone, and she was like, well, do you have any videos of you speaking? And I said, well, I have 4,000 videos on YouTube. And she said, well, there's a big difference between doing it on YouTube and speaking on a stage. And I knew what I could do, but she didn't really understand it, so I had to go somewhere and do it. I joined Toastmasters, and I started filming myself on my phone speaking in front of 10 people. And it wasn't much, but it was something. Now people can see me standing in front of an audience speaking. Then it moved on to a smaller event. Then I did a couple of TED Talks. And one thing that I do want to point out when it comes to building that brand, for a year, I tried to get into this type of industry, and people weren't paying me any mind because, again, the energy was weak. I had the wrong presentation. But when I first started doing TED Talks, they ask you, if any of you ever applied to do a TED speech, they have this application. Who are you? Where are you from? What is your background? What do you want to talk about? Why is it relevant? Do you have any videos of you speaking? And as I filled it out, all I had to do was tell them my life. I played basketball. All I was doing was playing basketball. I can't say I was doing anything else. That's what I was doing. I was putting videos on YouTube. That's what I was doing. These are the only things that I had. But when I started doing that, people started responding. They were like, wow, you played basketball? Wow, you did all these videos on YouTube? We really want you to come speak. So what I found out was the exact thing that I was trying to push under the rug and hide was the very thing that got people's attention, what built credibility, and got people's respect. So really, it's whatever you've been doing, be that person. Do that thing, and that's the thing that people will buy into. Yeah.
Great. One more?
One more. What's the name of my book? That's an easy one. It's called Buy a Game. I actually written 7 books. I'm about to publish 5 more ebooks. So if you just go to my website, dreallday.com, you can see all of my stuff.
Okay, great. Let's have a round of applause for Dre, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.